Jesus is alive. What is going on, guys? So for the next 3 weeks for these Monday devotions, I'm going to be your host. And I'm going to be introing these devotions for 3 different teachers. And yes, so as our topic that I just said is Jesus is alive. And because of Easter and just remembering Resurrection Sunday, for the next 3 weeks, we're just going to be talking about how Jesus is alive and how we know that even though he lived 2,000 years ago physically on this earth, how he's still alive to this day. And so what we're going to do is, with these 3 different teachers, we're going to talk about how he's alive in history, how history proves he is alive, also how he's in our presence all the time, and how he can fill the room with his presence when you're just reading the word or praying to him. And then also just how his word, the Bible, says he is alive. So speaking of that third topic, how the Bible says he is alive, I'm just going to read y'all one quick passage from Luke 24. So if you want to turn there to Luke 24, verse 36. And to give y'all some background on this story, so Jesus has just died, and Mary and a couple of other women went to the tomb, and they found that the tomb was empty. And so they went back and told the disciples that the tomb was empty and that the miracle had happened, that Jesus has rose from the dead after 3 days. And they were kind of skeptical of it at first. But this story is about how Jesus appears to all the disciples when they're all in one room together hiding. It's all 11 disciples. So here we go. Verse 36. Jesus appears to the disciples. While they were still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you troubled? Why do doubts rise in your minds? Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." When he said this, he showed them his hands and feet. And while they still did not believe it because of joy and amazement, he asked them, "Do you have anything else to eat here?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate it in their presence. He said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." So I love these 8 verses because it's just showing how the Lord appeared to the disciples and, showed them proof that he is still alive. And I love how all the disciples are just in awe and amazement, as it says in the word, and they're just so shocked because he just died 3 days earlier and now he's alive and well. And I mean, they didn't believe it. They thought he was a ghost, but he's like, does a ghost have flesh and bone? Does a ghost have holes in his hands from the nails that I was on the cross and died for you? And I just think it's amazing how the Lord just shows up in the room where they're all at and just proves that he's alive and well, and that the Lord has won and conquered death. I just think it's such a powerful thing. And I just love how the disciples are still in awe and still in shock. And then he asks for food and they give it to him and he eats it. And, that just proves it even more that, a ghost can't eat food. A ghost doesn't have flesh and bones. It is truly Jesus Christ in the living flesh, and he is alive and risen again. So now Mr. Brown is going to talk to you guys on the history of why Jesus is alive today.
Hey guys, Mr. Brown here. Want to tell you why I believe Jesus is alive today, right? I'm going to tell it through the scope of history because I'm a history teacher, and we're going to see how Jesus's resurrection has impacted the world today. I'm going to start you in Rome 380 AD. Emperor Theodosius changes the entire Roman Empire into a Christian empire. These are the same guys that were in charge when Jesus was crucified. They believed so much in the power of Christianity and the cross that they changed the entire Roman Empire into Christianity. Now we go to 1492. Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue. Now, while Columbus does seek a new trade route to India, Isabel and Ferdinand, the people that sent him, were the ones who wanted to spread Christianity, right? His later missions were to spread Christianity in the kingdom and the idea of Christendom. And so those early missions were to spread the kingdom. Just a few years later, we get guys like Martin Luther, John Wycliffe, John Calvin, and these are the forefathers of the Protestant Reformation. The very churches we have today, Methodist, Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, non-denominational, all came from these guys. These guys split from the Catholic Church and really showed to some of these Western monarchs they didn't have to be under the control of the church. Speaking of freedoms, we go to America in the 1620s, 1630s, right? Who do we have come to America? The Pilgrims, Massachusetts Bay Colony, the Quakers, right? All these groups came here for religious freedom. They sought new ways to practice their own religion. Fast forward a few years, we get 1740, the Great Awakening with George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards. These guys spoke to America in a revival of faith, talking about being free from their oppression, being free from their sins, believing in Jesus Christ for their freedoms. And those ideas began to spread into Boston, into the Northeast, throughout America, the colonies at the time, and that led to the Revolution. Now, something that happened is all these guys trusted in God and trusted in the resurrection and the belief in the cross, and that's what led them to their actions. A couple more things real quick. One, George Whitefield created Bethesda Orphanage here in Savannah, Georgia. It is the oldest orphanage in Georgia. And he did this because he wanted to show the mercy and the love to others in Georgia, right? The poor, the needy. He's living out the message of Jesus Christ. And then we look at Operation Christmas Child, this Christian organization developed by Billy Graham, who's a huge evangelist, or was, I should say, right? That is spread throughout the world, showing the love of Christ to people all over the world. So these are just a few examples of how, through history, I know Jesus is alive, because his resurrection impacted the entire world.